Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Laura Wilkie with Down Home with Lemon Pie, and this is video 6 in our Homeschool Bravely series. Alright guys, welcome back. I am Laura Wilkie with Down Home with Lemon Pie. I am a Christian stay-at-home homeschool mom of 7, and we are almost halfway through Homeschool Bravely by Jamie Erickson. This book is so exciting, so full of rich wisdom, and I'm excited to be going through it with you guys chapter by chapter. This is video 6, so we are on chapter 6. I call this my highlighter book because it is the book that I am currently going through with my highlighter that is just marking the little information that I want to remember. I do encourage you to get your own copy though, because you're going to want to do the same. You're going to want to go back and reference it. If you're not a highlighter person, you're going to still want to go back and reference it, and having it in your hands is a great way to do that. And of course, we want to support Jamie Erickson, who did the work for us. So how to squash doubt, trust God, and teach your child with confidence. Let's jump right in. I am so excited to go through this chapter with you guys because I know so many people that struggle with exactly this, including our own family at some point in our homeschool journey. We have struggled with what they are going to address in chapter 6, and it is called Struggling to Teach a Struggler. And I am so excited to go through this, like I said, because I've talked about this same topic many times on my channel, and this is something that many people not only struggle with, but feel like they are just defeated, like they just cannot do homeschooling or be a good homeschool mom because of this exact thing, and it's so wrong. So I do want to point out a couple truths that I'm going to share with you guys that she also shares, and maybe it'll help give you guys some encouragement. So she talks about, right off the bat, she talks about we have some great days, we have bad days. Everybody has days, good and bad, and they usually, most of the days are somewhere in the middle. You think of like the little bell curve, right? And some days are here, some are here, but the majority is in that medium side. And she says it's important that we are grateful for that medium, that commonplace is what she calls it. Most of the time, our struggles are character related, like where she's let habits slip or ignored little offenses until everybody's just going crazy. And but there are some things that are more than that, okay? And that's what she's talking about in this chapter is sometimes a child's struggle to learn or her struggle to teach, especially when it comes to a learning disability, okay? So we have had this come up in our own home as well. And yeah, it was something that I thought, oh my gosh, we have to get all these things. We have to get all this help. And I realized really quick after I talked with another homeschool mom, it was actually my mother-in-law who was seasoned in homeschooling, and she really set the record straight. So I'll get back to that story in just a minute. But she says, I was convinced there was no other path for him but the public school because they have all the special ed inclusion plans. I knew deep in my bones, however, that in passing his struggle off to someone else, I'd be obeying a gospel of convenience, but I would be ignoring the work God was calling me to do. We talked about that in the last chapter. If you missed that chapter, jump back a video and listen to that because it is so good, or read the chapter in your book. It is so good. Okay. A struggle shows that you are doing something right. That's something you probably haven't considered. Struggle is a verb, so it means you're putting action and effort, giving it all you've got. If you are teaching a struggling learner, it means that you are right now developing a learner. We all have a struggling one. A common theme started to pour out. Okay. So here she's talking about something that I have referenced also. She goes into the little potty training example, which I will also use because it's the same example I have also used many times over on this channel. And it is eventually they will get it. They will become a reader. Teaching your child to learn to read, I feel like is maybe the number one hardest thing in homeschooling when it comes to struggling children who are struggling. That is something that once you conquer it, it's like every door is open. So getting past that is really important. Same with potty training. So many doors can open once we get out of diapers, right? And the kids maybe move up to the next class in church or wherever. Maybe there's things that you couldn't do before because they had a diaper and you can do it now. So there are things that come, and of course it's one of those things that you have to learn. It's not something that, we'll just not learn that. You have to learn that. But what we all seem to forget is we're not going to send our kids to school or to college, rather, not school, but college, or into the adult world still in diapers, okay? They're not going to get married and still be wearing diapers and have to have their spouses take care of that for them in most cases, I would say, in all cases. That is not the goal. Same thing. Eventually, they will learn to read. They will get there, okay? So she says, this outcome applies to learning as well. Even if they're struggling doesn't mean they're going to struggle forever. And that is the thing that I think we all forget. When you're in it, you forget that there's a world on the other side and that you can get to that. It just takes time or patience or what have you. Even if your child has one of those real teachers, okay, she's talking about going into public school. Like if you send your kiddo to public school, and they have real teachers, they have real help, real assistance and things to help them. I've heard this from so many homeschool moms, and they will say things like, well, we have to go to public school, or we have to seek out. I know some public schools do like other programs that it's like you're homeschooling, but you're still getting all the assistance from the public school. That may be great, but you can do that on your own. You don't have to succumb or put yourself in the public school environment or with those professionals every time, because what you forget and what so many people forget, and I just want to point it out, is that often we think kids in public school are getting all the help they need. So if they're struggling, that's okay because they're getting all the help. Okay, we kind of see it that way, like they're getting so much assistance and they have IEPs and they have all these things set up and all these different therapies or whatever that they're getting. And we start to think, because they're getting all of that, they're better. Even though on a chart, they may still rank exactly where your homeschool kiddo is ranking, okay? And we forget that there is growth there, okay? They're still growing. You don't have to have all of these extra things. I understand that a lot of people want that, or they feel like they're inadequate, or they can't handle teaching their child because they have this, and this learning disability, okay? But I don't want that to be like the end all be all. Like we can't do it, like the excuse kind of like our child has to have these assistants because they have this disability. And I just don't believe that. I don't. This may be one that I start getting comments about people who disagree, but I'm sorry, I don't believe that. I believe that God has given you the ability to teach your kid. They have given you, He's given you strengths and weaknesses. And ultimately, I do think that all children will thrive in a loving environment, and that is not going to be somebody who is going to work and getting a paycheck and going home. Okay, this is going to be somebody who truly cares for your child, and that is ultimately mom and dad, right? It might be someone else sometimes, but God has provided us and equipped us to be their parents, okay? So He knows that we can do it. And yes, there are, I suppose, some extenuating circumstances, but I'm talking about in the general feel, it doesn't need to be, we can't do it. We just can't. And I was there too. I thought because my oldest child was struggling to read so much that we needed to do that same thing, okay? I get it. I was there. But And I have another child that's a very big struggler, and I have had other times when I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to get outside help. And I don't think that's the answer. I just don't. I don't think that's the answer. I think that God wants more for us as parents and as homeschool moms. So, a lot of times we'll think, oh, like I was saying, a lot of kids will say, oh, well, they have, like, they're dyslexic. Let's take an easy one. They're dyslexic, okay? In the homeschool world, it's like taboo. Like, they have to get help from somebody who is considered a professional, right? But in the public school world, even if they're getting help from somebody who's a professional, even if they have all these assistants and all these things set up to help them, that's not something you can't do in your own home on your own. That's also not something that is necessarily helping them. Okay? We just assume it is because it's in place, but that doesn't mean that it is. And I know lots of people in the public school system who have all these setups, all these things, and are still struggling and still don't have or don't feel they have the help that they need for their child. So that's where this comes into play. It's easy to think that all the difficulties of homeschool stem from the fact that you're schooling at home, and they don't. The blunt fact is that often struggles like reading are actually amplified in the public school system. Whew, I believe that so much. The school systems put up a chart. By the end of kindergarten, they need to have this much that they know about reading. By the end of the first half of first grade, they need to know this much. The second half of first grade. Okay, when I was in kindergarten, we were just learning the letters and their sounds. We were not putting anything together to make words. Why? Because our brains were not ready for that, and neither are the kids of today. But yet we are constantly, especially in the public school system, putting extra things on our kids at earlier and earlier and earlier ages, and it's not good. So she says, no matter what academic hardship your struggling one faces, know this: he will still face the same hurdle, just at a new location or with other guys. Okay. I think that is something so important to realize, that it's not going to be easier. Okay, I know there's, like, in our state that we live in, there's a system in place where public schools can pay for curriculum, and they'll give you some money to have curriculum and to school your kid at home. But they do all these other things that come along with that. Like, there's some testing that you have to do, and there is some other things that you have to do. There's like some video check-in things. There's a certain number of things they have to write, and they have to read a certain number of things, and you have to check in at the end of each week. And unfortunately, most kids, the amount of work that they're requiring, are not able to do that. So I have a really great friend. She had a child that was doing this program, and the amount of work that was required of her child was at least triple that what I was requiring of my own child at the same level, at the same age, same grade, everything the same. But he was struggling with some of the same things she was struggling with. And she had a label on her, and he did not, and didn't need one. But the reason, I fully believe, the reason that she had the label was because these schools, where they were charting and where they were deciding the abilities of children, is too high. It's too high. And when we actually do things and have expectations that match our children and what God has actually created them for, then those levels all get there. Okay, they eventually learn to read. Whether they know this many words when they're 5 or 6 or 7, it doesn't matter. They get there eventually. Okay, and I think that our education system needs a huge overhaul because of that. But let's get back onto this. Your struggling one will learn. Education is not a sprint, it's a marathon. You just keep moving forward. And a lot of people forget that. They're like, oh, they're not on grade level. They're not this, they're not that. Well, who determines the grade level? Okay. So it is possible to homeschool any child, even the ones who struggle greatly. That is at the bottom of page 78. And I feel like that needs to be like put in like bold print. I highlighted it, but I feel like it needs so much more because it's true. It is possible to homeschool any child, even ones who are struggling. You can do it. You can. Homeschooling affords not only a more realistic IEP, independent educational plan, but also a gentler one because it can better accommodate for the emotional and social struggles that often accompany learning disabilities. Yes, absolutely. Something that my mother-in-law told me years ago when my oldest was really struggling with reading and was flipping a lot of letters, and I took this online dyslexia test that I learned about at a conference, homeschool conference, and I was certain. I was like, oh my gosh, she is dyslexic. So we need to go through all the dyslexia things, and we need to learn all the things, and we need to figure it all out. And I called my mother-in-law, who'd been homeschooling for many more years than I was, and she gave me some simple and wise advice. And I have shared this many times on this channel. And she said, everybody has a struggle. Everybody has something they have to overcome. And this is something she's going to have to overcome. When she has, in the future or whatever, she has to learn to overcome this. It's not something that we can just label her and give a label. I feel like in our society, we're so quick to put labels on everything and all the kids. And some kids, I know they have 5 or 6 different labels that have been attached to them. And it's harder to remove those labels. So she said, don't put a label on her. Just every time she flips the letters, just correct her. And something that she has to overcome and she has to fix. And I thought, that is so simple. But it is so true. Now that same child is 14. She is reading, I think she read, I don't even remember, over 200 books last year. And I'm not talking little books. I'm talking like big books. And I shared her Goodreads account on my Facebook page, and she reads like crazy. She has complete understanding, comprehension. She has a wonderful vocabulary. And if I had to label, she still sometimes flips those same letters, B's and D's and such. And if I had to label, I would say that she's dyslexic. However, we're not going to put a label on her because it's just something she's had to overcome. I have things I have to overcome, and so do you and your children as well. So recognizing that, I feel like relieves a lot of the stress from, oh my gosh, we have to do it this way, and you don't. If you're homeschooling a struggling learner, you'll have to be more intentional. That's true than most to find ways of teaching from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. That's very true. So she gives us some ideas here. Set up remembrance stones is what she calls it. I absolutely love this so much. I actually call this a reverse planner. I have moms who have contacted me and they say things like, I plan out our days and then it never happens that way, and I'm constantly not following my plan. And I have advised many times over to do a reverse planner, which is basically, instead of planning it in advance, you have a rough idea of the subjects you want to do, and like maybe it's the same subjects every day in the same order or whatever, but you don't actually put this page to this page or this page to, and you fill that in as you complete it, so that at the end of the day or the end of the homeschool time or the end of the week, you can go back and see all that you've completed. And the same is true for your kiddos. She says, she's talking here, let me see. You and I are naturally forgetful. We struggle to remember God's faithfulness. We lose sight of all the Jordan rivers that he's parted. We, like the wandering ones of Joshua, need to set up some remembrance stones to remember. So she gives you some ideas. Keep a running list of what you know for sure. And at the end of each day, spend a few moments recording what your child has learned that day. I would even say you could even do it weekly, because you may not do math every day, or you may not do reading every day or whatever, but just as you complete things, write them down, and you will be amazed at how much you have actually accomplished. This works also for moms. Sometimes we get into that mom cycle where we're just like, oh my gosh, it's just kids, laundry, and food all the time. But there are other things that happen, little things that come in, and sometimes when we add those into our days, we remember them better. So naming the small wins will help you both to not only own them, but to see these victories, to see that, hey, you did it and you are doing it every day. Even if you take several days off, it's okay. Okay, the next thing she has is document improvement through recorded reading. I love this example so much. I unintentionally did this anyways, but basically she says you take your kiddos, and a kiddo who is just learning to read, you can take a short video, maybe a short 1-minute video of your kiddo reading a specific passage or just whatever they're reading. And then she says later, maybe a few weeks, a few months, you can go back and reread that same passage or read something that's more challenging, and they can watch the video and see how the difference is, how much they've grown, how much easier it is now. Because sometimes, like she says here, you can't see how far you've come because you feel like you're still learning, okay? So true. And I feel like that's how we kind of are in school in general, okay? We sometimes forget that, oh, like if you're a kiddo, you're like, oh, I'm only in 5th grade and I've been in school for so many years and I have so many more to go, and you don't realize how far you've already come. The same is true here. Okay, so I really like this. I'm going to share it with you. He can't see how far he's come because he fails to remember that the sounds and words he learned to read at the beginning of the year seemed hard because they were hard back then. Okay, and so it seems like, oh, well, I did hard stuff then and I'm doing hard stuff now. I'm always doing hard stuff. Everything's hard. And really, if you go back and look at the beginning of the year, that part's now easy. I did this actually with one of my kids that was learning to read and kind of got into a rut where they were really struggling, and we just went back and reread everything we had read from the beginning, and it gave them that confidence boost to keep moving forward. So we went back, started the whole book over, and I know it sounds so mundane and so time consuming, but that's what we did, and we got through it so fast. And then when we kept up that momentum, I guess, and continued through, because all of a sudden they realized, oh, this is so easy, and oh, it's a tiny struggle now. It's not so hard. And I love that. I love that. So I have actually done this. I have taken videos of my kids learning to read and then shown them those videos, and they have seen, oh, that was hard, and look how hard I'm struggling, and now I'm doing so well, and that's so easy, right? So, and then it makes it obvious. I like that. The next one is go beyond reading, writing, and arithmetic. This is so important. Yes, these are the 3 main things I focus on with my youngest kids, 3rd grade and down, but we do little things in between that to kind of break up that time. So we do these fairly daily. Some are more like 3 times a week or twice a week, but we do reading, writing, and math like that. But in between that, each day we have something else that we do, and it's a very small something, but we do something else. So we might do, we have where we read biographies and we read missionary stories, we do art stuff, we do some science reading, and we just kind of throw it in there and break it up a little bit so that it's not just always the same stuff that's hard, because all those other subjects a lot of times are the fun subjects the kids enjoy. They're the ones that are exciting and entertaining. They're the ones they look forward to. And when we just break it down and we say things like, well, you didn't get your reading done, so we're not going to do the fun science experiment. And you didn't get your math done, we're not going to do the fun craft. And I'm not going to let you do the fun baking thing that we had planned because you didn't get the reading and writing done and the math done. Then it makes school time very, very dull. It makes it very boring, very hard, something that nobody wants to look forward to, not even mom or dad, and especially not the kids. But when you add in these little things like nature study, we're going to go on a hike today, and we're going to take our journals and we're going to paint, and we're also going to do art. We're going to read a little story. So much better. So much better. I love I'll throw this in, but I absolutely love Simple Studies. We use Simple Studies in our homeschool, and it is such a great way to incorporate nature study and art together and one, and it's appropriate for the whole family, all ages, to do together, and I absolutely love it because of that. It gives them something else that's not dull and boring and hard, okay? It's something simple and something that they can understand easily. So I love that. Go beyond just reading, writing, and arithmetic. Absolutely. But it doesn't need to be only that. Like, it doesn't need to be just all the time, right? Okay, the next one, and this is the last one for this chapter, so hang with me. She calls it Stop Dangling Carrots. Okay, this one I'm not so sure. I get both sides. I get what she's saying here, but we still do this. She says, she's talking about giving our kids rewards, like rewarding them with cookies or stickers when they get things done or they do a good job. And she's like, what happens when that runs out? And what happens for this or that when they don't have any more? And you want them to learn to enjoy, or not even enjoy, she says, not even that learning's fun, but that it's something that is good for them, okay? I get it. However, even adults are rewarded for doing work. Even adults, they get a paycheck. They get bonuses when they go to work. And I think of our education time as our children's work time. And it doesn't have to always be fun. She says it should always be engaging. It should be, interacting, and they should be having curiosity and wonder. I agree with that, but it's not always going to be fun. Absolutely. I agree with that as well, but it can be fun. It can be, and it can be exciting. It can be something they look forward to. It's not always going to be. We do really a lot of fun things in our homeschool, and my kids don't always think they're fun. I think they're fun, and they don't think they're fun, and that's okay. That doesn't mean they don't have to do it. And that also doesn't mean that I'm not going to give them a sticker or a cookie or whatever reward because they did it, especially if they did it without complaining. The other rewards we give are things like they get game time, or the opposite of that, they lose game time that they would have had because they didn't do it, okay? So she says, a true education is one in which a child personally invests, one that he is passionate about, one that inspires, not requires him to learn. He owns his own learning. And I think that's ultimately the goal for all of us. We want our children to be able to find things that they're interested in and run with those things. So wrapping it up, she says, as long as my children can each get forward motion bit by bit, it will all add up and there will still be fruit. So that is chapter 6, Homeschool Bravely, How to Squash Doubt, Trust God, and Teach Your Child with Confidence. I feel like it's such a good chapter for many of us. It's very real, especially with the disabilities and things that we talked about. So join us next week. We're going to be talking about chapter 7, which is Little People and Big Messes. So that is going to be a fun one, especially if you have little ones charging around in your homeschool as well, like I do. Great ideas in here for that. So I will catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.